Sin City, and going ahead and doing a talk about my first 2 weeks driving for Lyft. Um, and actually, it was a very pleasant experience. I did it kind of part time. I found that it really did go ahead and work well. A couple of good things about it, a couple of bad things or things you need to be aware of, but just wanted to go ahead and share those with you in case anyone happens to fall across the same thing. If you're thinking about doing Lyft, first of all, I'll go ahead and say, hey, you really should do it. It is a people job. It is a driving job. You do have to kind of know your area a little bit to go ahead and do it. There is a GPS to work, but even so, you do have to kind of know because the GPS can be a little bit iffy at times. But I'll get into that on this as we go along. The first thing I really wanted to go ahead and just kind of explain what happened. Both weeks, I basically worked about part-time, about 3.5 days on each one. The first week was simply because I started kind of late in the system as far as getting validated, my background check finalizing, and all that other type of stuff, and getting my vehicle squared away as far as what needed to be done to get it ready to go. So I worked about 3.5 days on week number one. The second day, my primary job is I sell eBay, and I also do tours in the Las Vegas area. And I was gone for 4 days on the second week doing a 4-day tour of the Canyonlands, Grand Canyon, the Monument Valley, Bryce Canyon, and Zion National Park. And so for 4 days, I was off doing that, which meant by the time I got back, I was pretty tired. And so I ended up doing just a couple of days. I'd done a day or two before I left on the trip, and then 2 days after I got back off on the trip. Didn't work really that hard. So for 2 part-time days, a couple of things that I saw. First of all, about the income. Here in Las Vegas, of course, it's a very touristy area, and there's things happening all the time, unlike some places where it's dead on some days and busy on others. It's basically busy on almost every day, but on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it's ultra busy. And so you can get a lot of work there. And as you're going ahead and working on those days, you're going to be having steady rides as you go along. One of the things that surprised me, of course, we have the famous Las Vegas Strip here in Las Vegas. Massive resort casinos like the MGM and Bellagio, and you expect that there'd be a lot of rides from there. And there are. If you go ahead and go on the Strip, you're just getting rides all the time. But most of the rides are very short. You're picking them up at New York, dropping them off at Paris. You're picking them up at Bellagio, dropping them off at the Wynn Casino. So they're like $5 rides, $6 rides. Even the Strip is close to the airport, so even when people are going to the airport, you're picking them up and taking them to the airport, and it's a $5 or $6 or $7 ride. So you're busy, but there are all a lot of small things. One of the things that I discovered while I was running around is that actually doing business away from the Strip, the downtown area especially, but also some of the areas, especially to the east and to the south of the city, you weren't getting quite as many rides, but there were longer rides. You were getting $12 rides and $15 and $19 and $22 rides. And so you weren't doing as much, but you were definitely doing a whole lot more money in a less amount of time. And so I found I'm still kind of experimenting because I had one person went ahead and mention it to me one time. I forget his name, but it was basically along the lines of this type of a job is a people job. You need to know what the people are doing, when they are doing it, how they're doing it. Because sometimes they're going to the airport, and sometimes they're not going to the airport. Sometimes they're going to clubs. Sometimes they're leaving clubs. Sometimes they're going to work. Sometimes they're coming back home from work. And if you just kind of get a feeling for the pulse of your area, the pulse of your city, you get a better idea of where and when is the best time for you to be if you're going to earn money doing something like Lyft. And so that's very important. So one of the first things that I'm really finding I'm learning, first of all, is trying to get to know those uh, the people ideas, where they are, when they're going, what's the flow of people in the city, where's the best place for me to be at certain times of the day to best take advantage and make the most money at those times. That's probably going to be an ongoing thing. I've learned a whole lot in the last 2 weeks about where and when to be, when it's not a good time to go ahead and drive, when it's a better time to drive in certain areas and not in others. And that's going to be continuing. Um, in the first week, I went ahead and I made, I said 3.5 days, I made $435, minus gas, which ended up being probably about $50. So it was roughly about $100 a day I was making. The second week, again, it was a little bit less because partly I was tired from my long tour, and also partly because um, uh, I was gone for the Thursday and Friday where it's really busy, so I was there for Saturday and Sunday, which isn't quite so good. And I made 375 gross by the time everything else is taken out. It was about $300 that I made. Again, close to $100 a day. One of the things that I was wondering about when I started is the final thing I wanted to talk about today was the driver bonus. They have two different levels of driver bonus. For those who don't know, Lyft, of course, goes ahead and takes a commission every time that you take a ride. If you're signing up now in this year, the commission is 25%, which seems a bit sizable, but of course, they have all the advertising and everything else that they do to support. But the good news is that the more you drive for Lyft, then the lower that commission goes. And so far, even working 3 days a week, I've been getting to the first level of bonus. Uh, to do the first level of bonus, you have to have at least a car that's 19 or 2011 or newer. You have to be able to get a 90% response rate as far as accepting rates. In other words, you can't be saying, I don't want to do that, refuse. I don't want to do that, refuse. You need to be doing a good job of when one becomes available, you take it. The second thing is for the first level, you have to do 10 prime time rides. Most prime times, at least here in Las Vegas, is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday is from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night. And then Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, it basically runs from about 5 o'clock until around 1 o'clock in the morning. And they want to see it do at least 10 rides during that time. And that's a little bit of a problem if you only want to do it during the day. You can get some daytime with the Thursday and the Friday, but they're really looking for people to be out during the times when most people need it, and that's during those times. Those were the times for Las Vegas. They might be a little bit different for your area. That's something that you just have to be aware of, and that shows up on your data information for your Lyft drivers, and they also send you a lot of information as far as this is the prime time now, these are special events, these are things going on. So doing 10 rides in a week, and then the final thing is doing a total of 45 rides. In each case, even though I was doing it short term, I was very easily able to go ahead and do the 45 rides, do the 10 primetime rides. In fact, I'm mostly driving in the afternoons and the evenings, so I'd say about 60% of my rides are actually in prime time. So that for me, prime time was absolutely no trouble. And so instead of paying a 25% commission, I ended up only paying a 15% commission. I gave myself a 10% raise simply because I was doing a little bit of work. And I'm pretty sure that if I start doing this 5 days a week, which I'm kind of feeling that's where I'm going to be ending up at, I should have no problem going on to the next level, which is, again, a 90% acceptance rate on rides. There you have to have 15 primetime rides and 75 total rides, which, again, for 5 days, I don't think that would be an issue for me getting. If you do that, I get a 20% raise to only be taking 5% commission out. And that increases everything that I'm doing. So when you start looking at that, that makes it an even better deal. So my first 2 weeks in Lyft, I had a lot of fun, had some great rides, talked to some cool people, and made some money. And that's kind of what it was supposed to be here for Lyft. Next time I go ahead and do one of these, I'll be talking a little bit about the how to source cars and a few other things like that. If anyone has any question, please feel free to ask. I'd go ahead and be happy to talk about Las Vegas or lifting in Las Vegas. You guys have a great time. Ciao, YouTube.